I think we have to switch quickly to the next panel because I understand our three MEPs, they need to catch a flight for Brussels. So we are a little bit under time constraint. So I call upon Dario Carella, Director of RAI from Italy, to assume his responsibilities. And I call to the panel Eleni Theocharous, member of the European Parliament with the European People's Party for Cyprus, Nikos Chrysogiolos, member of the European Parliament with the Greens European Free Alliance for Greece, Fernando de Sousa from SIC Television in Portugal, and Silvana Rapti, who is planned to be in this panel. She is otherwise engaged and she will try to join us as soon as possible. So I propose, in view of the pressure we have for our MEPs to catch the flight, to start immediately. Dario.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to this third panel. Probably is the most difficult for the question, how to create more and better jobs. And probably the question, after all, is how to create a job first, after the better job. Because I think that the problem of our southern countries of the Europe, but I think also the French have the same problem, is to create a job, and after more job, and after all the better job. The ultimate statistic of Eurostat says that in the country of Southern Europe, the unemployment is now great as a nation. In Italy, the unemployment for the young people is corresponding at a region more big than Lombardy. Let's say Lombardy is the first region for people in my country. So our European Union I think that this is a problem of also in the campaign of this European election of the May 2014, how to create more jobs. So we enter immediately in the debate with Mrs. Eleni Theocharous, I think the name, is a member of the European Parliament, the European People's Party, and coming from Cyprus.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to apologize to the audience because I must leave in less than a quarter of an hour. I have a flight very soon. Also, my colleague, Mr. Chrysogiolos, and Mrs. Raptis. I tell you, I am here in Athens since Saturday waiting for this discussion, but unfortunately I wasn't lucky enough to have more time. So Alexandra will modify my speech and have it in mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of unemployment in the European southern countries is one of the most prominent issues the European Union faces today. I'm not an expert in how to create jobs, but I will present the case of Cyprus, and I hope we will benefit from that. As an introduction, I would like to briefly present the description of the current tragic situation in Cyprus, a state which has unfortunately been recently the leader in the increase of unemployment, especially the unemployment of the youth. I'm doing this not only because Cyprus is my country, but because Cyprus served as an experimental model. In fact, it was sacrificed in order to see how we can manage the financial crisis. As you know, Cyprus is an isolated, remote area, violently divided, and with a tiny and weak economy, and the unemployment rate reached 20% in the second quarter of 2013. This practically means that the 1/3 of the active population is unemployed. Of course, we have to compare the sizes during the morning sessions. I heard many times comparing the economy of China with the economy of Europe or certain member states. If you think of Cyprus, then you will realize that it's just a neighborhood in Manhattan or a neighborhood in the Chinatown of Manhattan. The increase in unemployment reached disproportionate figures after the decision of the Eurogroup in March 2013. The tragedy strikes even further when one discovers that 40% of the youth below 25 and 30% of the youth at the age of group of 20 to 29 are unemployed, most of them being without a job for more than 12 months. Cyprus has one of the highest rates of educated population with university degrees worldwide. All this population are currently without a job, or they are doing something, they are working in a field extremely different the one they were dreaming for themselves or they were preparing for. A prominent effect that the lack of jobs represent in the Cypriot society is the suppressed morale amongst the youth and their social circles and families, which is ever growing and ever demoralizing for the young minds that are full of hope and dreams, only to find doors closed before they even attempt to go through them. However, an even greater and more worrying effect is the phenomenon of brain drain that has commenced and that does not seem to have the tendency to subside soon. As a result of the unemployment in the youth, young Cypriots are forced to migrate. This exodus is undertaken mostly by young scientists since they have more chances of finding work abroad. It goes without saying that the mobility of citizens in the European Union is a fundamental and inalienable right, but what has been occurring is a violent displacement of our own youth. I must stress on the fact that the majority of these youth does not voluntarily want to cross borders in order to work. Yet the meager conditions in Cyprus leave them with no other option. It is also a fact that the young generations does not trust its predecessors or their policies, the politicians, the whole system, and the European Union. They are Europhobic and Eurosceptic. The problem is even worse among those who do not have higher education or other practical or training skills, leaving them to compete with thousands of Europeans from the new member states who migrated to Cyprus after the last two enlargements. In addition, we face the problem of thousands of the nouveaux pauvres who live in the country, most of them being in need of a church kitchen to survive. The evident question will then be, what can we do in a time of crisis to better the situation, and more specifically, how shall the Cypriot government act to address the issue? Of course, our challenge does not lie in ending the trend of unemployment, but in building a developmental model, one which we never had before, to enable the young to enter the labor market in Cyprus and excel with their own country. without being forced to move for lack of opportunities. In order to achieve this, the issue must be addressed on a multitude of levels, but one mandatory step forward is to create a developmental policy with a specific aim of combating youth unemployment. For such a policy to be successful, it is necessary to integrate a labor policy that will be directly aimed at dealing with job creation or invention. We must start with simple short-term measures that will deal with unemployment for the very near future, but we must also have a long-term vision, one that will ensure that each generation of young people will be able to engage in the career they have dreamed of. As I said before, the best practices applied in other European states are a good way to go, and the policies of the European Union. And I'm not going to refer to these since you can find them everywhere on the internet. I'm just trying to present how the situation is and how we must proceed. We must create a new model of development in Cyprus based in using our geostrategic and geopolitical advantages, the climate and our geographic position, which means the proximity to Egypt, Israel, the whole Middle East, and Africa. And of course, investing in education, services, communication, tourism, agriculture, environment, and energy. If I have the time, I will analyze this. For years, the Cypriot labor market has remained captive to corruption, nepotism, favoritism, and lack of trust to the foundations of the state. This is the truth. Such a change would be able to break free of these shackles that has deprived the youth of their confidence, but also with own abilities and motivations. This particular road will be extremely long and difficult, but in order to give the possibility to the future of the Cypriots, it has to be taken as soon as possible. That being said, should we engage in such a radical change of structure, such a development will foster a rapid change within Cyprus. And it will allow for improvement in the financial situation we are in and probably a quicker exit from the crisis. Young people should turn to innovation based on their own productivity and efficiency, with imagination and courage, with a strong investment in their own knowledge and experience. They will have to take their fate in their own hands and build their future based on their own abilities, skills, and values. In essence, the state will not create the new jobs, but will give wide and strong foundations for the youth to do so with their own minds and capabilities. As our youth is currently feeling suppressed and demoralized, it is this change of circumstances that is needed to give new hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Theodorakis. Theocharis. Okay. Now, another MEP, member of the European Parliament of the Greens European Free Alliance, is MEP Nikos Chrysogelos. Is right?
Yes, it is a difficult.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, because we are not able to stay longer than 3 o'clock. We have to leave for our flight. A brief picture of the country, social picture. 1.5 million citizens are without any job now. Between them, 450,000 families with not even one person working there. About 3 million citizens in Greece are not anymore covered by the public social security system, and most of them, they have not access to the public health system. That is a real crisis. About 400,000 Greeks, mainly young people, have left the country looking for a job in another country, mainly in Europe, but not only in Europe, and a better life than the last 3-4 years. That means we have also a problem with the dynamic of the society, because these are people very creative and they leave the country. And at least 100,000 small medium enterprises closed during the crisis the last 3-4 years. So it is obvious that we need a different policy, we need a different Greece, we need a different Europe. And this is not a successful policy. Of course, we need to solve our fiscal problems. We cannot transfer this problem to the next generations, but in a more logic, sustainable way. And this is what is missing at the moment, I think so. But it is not only a problem of Greece, it is also a problem of Europe. The unemployment, the rate of unemployment is increasing in many countries in Europe. Of course, the differences are huge. In Greece, the rate of unemployment is 60%. In Spain, about the same. In Germany, it's about 10%. But it is a European-wide problem, I think so, for the social cohesion, for the stability, for the future of the new generation. This demonstrates that we are living with an asymmetric supranational crisis, and however, we are still trying to respond to it on national terms without the proper tools. And member state policies in Greece, in Portugal, in other southern countries, only make matters worse at the moment. There is not an improvement at this level. The correct way to respond to this is a community, a European-wide response, rather than just a response between the governments. At the moment, for such a big problem, we have ended up allocating too little money for too many years in a period of a serious financial crisis and austerity measures which increase the unemployment. We discuss a lot about the recapitalization of the banks, and for Greece that means that we will spend more than 50, 60, 70 billion of euros. But for all the youngsters that are unemployed, we will spend for the whole Europe about 6 billion. And this is 0.6% of the European budget for the next period, 2014-2020. That means that 0.6% we will spend for the main problem of the European society. It is simply not acceptable. We cannot think like this. Many times we discuss in the European Parliament, the Council discuss about youth unemployment. At the end, the result is 6 billion euros. And this is nothing, really. So the Commission, the European Central Bank and IMF must take account of this rather than asking for more and more cuts. There is an alternative. That means real reforms towards social and ecological sustainability. Investments in the frame of a green social new deal, reach of jobs, and an increase of the efficiency of the administration. And this must be done with the participation of the citizens and the stakeholders. This could be an alternative to the current austerity policies for a real exit of the crisis, because now we cannot see an exit of the crisis based on the current policies. There is a message to the youngsters. It is not written, it is not very crowded, but it says, you must try harder and we will make a small effort as societies to help you try harder. This is not what young people need to hear. It ignores the fact that there are simply not enough jobs. There are no plans for innovation. There is no support to innovation. And this is because of a poor policy making, as well as because young people don't participate, or they are not able to affect the policies for youngsters. So we need to hear the young generation, and we have to call them to participate in this dialogue, how we can solve together the problems, the youth unemployment, but it is not only youth unemployment. There are a lot of discussions in the European Parliament. There are recently 2 reports discussed on 12th of September. And what we can say is that although there are a lot of ideas and proposals, at the end, the main difficulty is that we don't have tools for the implementation of instruments or policies like youth guarantee. There are not enough money to implement what we discuss and we want for tackling the youth unemployment using instruments like youth guarantee. That means support for the youngsters to start again a training or to find a job or to create a job. So it is not enough to discuss about solving the problems, but it is the time of taking actions and efficient actions. This is the main problem. We have good ideas. In June 2012, the Council discussed a lot about investments, about huge amount of money for growth, about 180 billion euros, but there is nothing on the table. So we discuss, and the people are waiting for something very concrete. And this is, I think, the main problem. But if there are investments, I think we can solve in a better way our fiscal problems. And now there is a cycle of devil. There are more and more people unemployed. There are holes, there are not enough money for the social security system, and so there is collapse of them. Then we need more money for the rescue of the country. So there is no hope at the end. So we have to change. I think it's a time of a change, and we have to discuss in our societies in South how we can change the pattern of development, the pattern of economy. Sure, we have to change ourselves. From the other side, we need solidarity. But this solidarity is not just for the Greeks or the Italians. It is also for Europe. Think what could be done in June 2012 after the European elections. A parliament without any vision for Europe, but with a strong presence there of people and political forces which they will try or they will want to destroy the European building, the European project. And this is a serious problem not only for Greece or for Spain, but it's also a problem for Germany. Without a strong European Union, we cannot face the problems that globalization creates. Even Germany or Britain or France cannot survive in the future without a strong European Union. And so for me the question is, are we ready to change Europe, to change our countries and societies, or we are waiting for the collapse of the European house? Thanks a lot. Of course, there are a lot of questions, and there are a lot of ideas about Green New Deal. We have proposed a lot, how we can create jobs, how we can support innovation and eco-innovation. There are some European good practices and some European good projects, but what is missing is the political will to focus on that and to support also through the European budget for the next period such projects. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chrysogelos. This is the heart of the problem. Now, speech my colleague Ferdinando de Souza of SIC TV, Portugal.
Thank you very much. What a big responsibility being the last one, isn't it? Well, but first I have a word for you, because I'm working on television for many years and I love the public. And I like to talk especially to the people who's here and people who is following us through the streaming. Probably many people has got a job, others don't have a job, but well, really there were lots of mistakes in the last few years, mistakes from the politicians, from the society, from probably all of us. And at least I'd like to leave you a word of hope. Probably if there is some vision, let's hope so, help could be on its way. And this meeting is a way of trying to open some lines of thought to try to find a way of not to avoid, to prevent new crises and to solve these problems. And probably will not be the last ones. Probably in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, we'll be having other problems. That's the regeneration of the problems of the European Union. That's a live entity. I'm following European Union for 30 years, and this is not my first crisis. I can assure you that I've seen others much more difficult. My good friend and MEP Graça Carvalho this morning has described a bit the situation in Portugal, so I could spare you these figures. The only thing I could say is that the crisis started mainly because Portugal had an inefficient public service, inefficient economy, spending too much. And now we are paying for that, and going through a very painful program of austerity. And when I say a very painful program of austerity, you too know very well what I'm meaning. In the next few months, probably June next year, we hope to go back to the markets to say goodbye to the Troika. That will not be the end of the program. That will be the end of the problems. Probably there will be a follow-up program just to support Portugal just in case. And let's hope we're not going to use it. There are some signs the economy is recovering, but what is the price? The price is that we have almost 60% of unemployment in general terms, coming a little lower in the last few months, but we don't know if that's because there are more employment or people is giving up to register for unemployment, or many young people left the country to live and work in other places in Europe. In my work, I travel all over Europe, a bit all over the world, and I've met lots of Portuguese young people saying, I would like very much to go back to Portugal, but what am I going to do there? Here, I've got possibilities. And among the young people, unemployment is almost 39%. And that's not tolerable. So let's hope, again hope, I'm very hopeful at the end of this day, that things are getting better. Having said that, we should stress one thing. The main responsibility for a crisis lays in the country itself. The crisis put itself in this situation. We can say, well, the Troika came up and the situation was not better because the solution was not better, but the main and the responsibility on the outset is the country. If I go to my bank manager saying, excuse me, Mr. Smith, I bought my Ferrari, but now I notice I don't have money to pay for it. And the first question will be, why did you buy a Ferrari? Why didn't you buy a cheaper car? Probably you could walk around and drive around with a better car. And that is the question that the European Commission, the World Bank, the IMF, any institution could say, why are you doing this expensive if you knew that you could not do it? So the responsibility is always on our side, the first part of the responsible. The other responsibility could be somewhere else. And we can ask the question, now that the Troika is going away from Ireland, going away from Portugal, hopefully going away from Greece in the future, did the Troika work well? The solution, was it good? That's a question. And the answer will be, obviously, no, I can afford to be a bit polite. There is some room for improvement, of course. The solution of the Troika was not good, because that solution brought more recession and brought a condition when the countries were not able to pay what they had to pay. And the debts are to be paid. That's the basic principle. In a country, in my house, in your house, if we ask for money, if we borrow money, we have to pay for it. Some people don't think like that. In public terms, debt could be rescheduled, could be negotiated, and till the end when could be pardoned. It's not a very good principle. So, how can we solve the problem? We have a problem. How can we solve it? The way is thinking a little bit out of the box. And probably if we think of it, and I think the Commission did not think properly, and the IMF did not think properly, probably could find another solution. That has been supported, for instance, by Martin Schulz this morning. Make the combination between growth and austerity and discipline, financial discipline. We have to have financial discipline at our house, in the country, anywhere. But we could combine, and not too much, or only priority to austerity. And I'm very happy when I see lots of European leaders saying now, it's a very big problem, this thing of the youth, the youth without a job. But we have been talking about that for 3-4 years. But 4 years ago, when I would talk to a member of the Commission, for instance, or a member of the IMF, and what about unemployment, especially the jobs for the youngsters? And we'd say, no, first we have to put our economy in line, we have to be disciplined, and then jobs will come automatically. Of course, they did not. Probably they don't read newspapers, because everybody was writing that. And I've been following other crises, other parts of the world, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Africa, and the solution was never good. So if you apply the same solution to Europe, of course, is the calling for a disaster. So what is the solution? What could be the solution? I'm not saving the world here. I'd like very much to do that. We could have a plan. One plan that is funding the European economy, on the other side, disciplining it. We can say, well, we have a difference of cultures. People in the south, they're more laid back in what deals with money. People in the north are more strict with the money. In a meeting in the European Parliament, there was someone who was saying, some time ago, was saying, we have a different kind of attitude in the south towards money in comparison with the north. And someone said, well, that's why North are richer. So we could change our attitude. We could have a plan. One side, we could find, I wouldn't say a Marshall Plan, but a way of funding, a way of reviving the economy. How do you find that money? Lots of ways of doing it, because the money is there. First of all, 1% or a bit more, 1% from the product of the European Union in the European budget, that's peanuts. And so nobody goes anywhere with that. And we could not forget one thing. When you put money in the European Union, part of the money feeds back to the country. For instance, Germany is the paymaster of the European Union. Part of the money goes back to Germany, in German companies, in taxes, in keeping economy alive in Germany. So when they say we're paying too much, we could think better about that. So the money is there, and could be seed money, because if there is money, if there is trust, the private money would come. And private money in Europe, the private money in China, in India, anywhere. I was in Cannes in a G20 meeting 2 years ago, and Barroso was, Barroso was saying, we need support from outside, and the other guys were saying, okay, so show me a plan. That's quite normal. My bank manager would say that, show me a plan for your company, and then I put the money there. So far, there is not much a plan, so there's not much money. So the money could come. And then I see someone in Germany or someone in Holland following this streaming saying, oh, there's the Portuguese guy asking for money. That's the only thing they can ask. But the money is, as I said, is feeding back. What is the meaning of that money? What the use for? Is for promotion of SMEs, the most producers of jobs, is to to promote R&D, research and development, so you not be overtaken by China or the United States, who have been already taken, but by China or by India in a few years' time. because we have good brains here, and it's better to keep them here instead of sending them to the United States or to China. And other ways you could use the money. But this is not only giving money. There's no free lunches here. So we don't give only money. We don't receive money. The money would circulate for the whole European Union, and at the same time, there will be a strict plan for the countries in difficulties and for the other countries, so they could put their economies and restructuring their economies in a reasonable period, not in 3 years, as has been asked. It could be in 10 years, in 15 years. Why not? The markets would accept that in a strict model that would be followed by and with a strict surveillance by, for instance, the European Commission, the European Parliament, or the Central Bank. The markets would want a country that is able to pay its debts and not being under strict measures that prevent them to pay. So if they say, okay, we have this in 15 years, they are going to pay everything. And the strict rules, definitely, they would accept that. So in very simple terms, that would be an idea. I present it. I'm not an economist, but I write and read quite a lot. And that would be a good idea to create a plan, to create a way of growing the economy and paying our debts. That would be interesting. And this could be creating a more powerful European Union, could be a more competitive European Union. And we cannot forget one thing. If the countries now into difficulties need the support of the richer countries need also the markets and the know-how of the countries in difficulties. So, at the end of the day, instead of having South for growth, we'd have Europe for growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. Welcome to Silvana Rapti, member of the European Parliament of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. But there is Miss Theocharous. Now is right? Okay. That before want to a little things.
I regret we must go. Special apologies to you, Mr. De Sousa, and you, Chair. I promise I will give written answers to all questions addressed to me. Thank you so much. And for
Okay. Please.
Well, finally, I was not the last one.
And the last became first. I don't know.
Yes.
Well, totally agree with you. Totally agree with your intervention.
Thank you very much.
I have nothing to say. I have nothing to add to this intervention.
Thanks very much.
First of all, sorry for being late, but there was some troubles. So there is here an answer, a question: how to create more and better jobs? I would like to be honest. I don't know. I don't know. Because every politician is speaking about how to create more and better jobs. But at the end of our interventions, there is no recipe. These are facts. So, I have in my mind that we have just a first step. But in my opinion, very important. We have now, for the first time in the European Union, the youth guarantee. Question: is that enough? No. No. But this is a first step. Because, as you know, our countries, the countries of South, and I conclude, and Ireland, because South is not only a geographical term. Yes. Nowadays, South is every country who suffers from austerity program. So, I think that the austerity program concerning Greece will give results, but not now. So we have to wait. Until waiting that the transformers will be present in our life, in our everyday life, we have to make something for the gap. For this gap, I think that the answer of youth guarantee is a small first step. But this is not enough. We have to fight within the European Parliament to have not only 6 billion, but to have more funding for this youth guarantee if we want to have results. Concerning Greece, I would like to inform you, if you allow, that my party, PASOK Party, the Greek Socialist Party, made a proposal for the creation of temporary employment posts in local and regional administration. Question, and what is this? Is this an answer to unemployment, to the high rates of unemployment in Greece? Of course not. It's just a small step to help especially young people and especially families who have unemployers. We try to do our best, but this is not enough. And I know that the former speakers have already told everything. So I would like to be brief and to speak to you about 3 words. First word, ninja. Ninja is a game. When my son was 5 or 6 years old, 20 years ago, I remember that he loved this ninja game. I didn't have many relation with this game, but now I have. Because ninja is the acronym of no income, no job, no assets for the young people. It's the ninja generation in inverted commas. And really, I don't like this game. So I feel a strong commitment to do something for this. Second word, Tina. A lady named Tina. Acronym. There is no alternative. I don't like this lady because I think there is alternative. And that's why we are all together here. Because we want to find an alternative. We want to fight for this alternative. And what is the recipe? What is our future? Another word, if you allowed me. EVA. I love this lady. EVA, acronym, employment, values, and alternative. That's why we are here, because we want to speak, we want to change ideas between us, and to find something to give to give jobs to young people, to young generation. We want, at the same time, to keep the values of the European Union, the values of the Europe. Without these values, we can do nothing. I think this is very important. That's why I have in my mind, okay, we want more jobs, but we want better jobs. We don't want to sacrifice quality instead of quantity. Because I have in my mind at the same time Germany. You know better than me that in Germany, the unemployment rate is 5.2%, if I'm not wrong. But at the same time, in Germany, we have 7 billion workers behind the poverty threshold. And this is a fact. We don't want this future for the Europe. We don't want poverty. We want jobs. We want to find the poverty, and we want a better life for everyone. Question: is Europe the solution for all these problems? I think yes. Out of Europe, there is no solution. But we need more Europe, we need a better Europe, and we need a Europe who applies all the rules at the same time for all the 28 countries. I think that in this framework, perhaps we can find the answer on how to create more and better jobs. Growth is the path. But before growth, we want liquidity. For having liquidity, we need banking union. For having banking union, we need solidarity. And all this, the base of all these things, is Europe. That's why I strongly believe that Europe is our future. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Take the question. Sorry.
I have to leave in 5 minutes.
Okay.
To catch
so we have
my
3
plane.
minutes from the question of the audience.
Scusate.
Free question. Free question.
Γεια σας. Πολύ σύντομα για την κυρία Σιλβάνα Ράπτη που θέλει να φύγει. Να δημιουργήσουμε νέες εργασίες, πολύ ωραία. Απλά τι θα κάνουμε με τις υφιστάμενες εργασίες, όπου υπάρχουν εργοδοτικές αυθαιρεσίες και συγκεκριμένα. Χθες δούλεψαν τα μαγαζιά εδώ πρώτη Κυριακή. Δεν πληρώθηκαν πολλοί εργαζόμενοι. Τι μπορούμε να κάνουμε για να μην υπάρχουν εργοδοτικές αυθαιρεσίες? Και για τη Γερμανία που είπατε, ο δείκτης ανεργίας είναι πάρα πολύ χαμηλός, γιατί εκεί υπάρχουν οι λεγόμενες mini και midi jobs με 300 ευρώ. Πραγματικά εργασιακός μεσαίωνας. Θα ήθελα την άποψή σας, κυρία Σιλβάνα Ράπτη. Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you very much for your question, my dear. Yes. That's why I've already spoken about a Europe who applies the rules. For example, yesterday it was Sunday, and it was the first Sunday that all the shops around the country were open for the first time. Is that good or not? My personal view. Perhaps it would be good for the shops. But imagine a mother who wants to have a Sunday with the family. This mother cannot have the Sunday in family with children. Because in the shops, the majority of the workers are women. And this is a crucial issue. At the same time, there wasn't a salary, the special salary, the special wage for this Sunday. This is not a good Europe. We have to do something for this. That's why I've already talked that we need rules to be applied. That's why I've already spoken about better jobs, about rules, about better Europe. This is crucial for me. And I think that this is crucial for the S&D group, the group I'm within as a member of the European Parliament. Thank you very much. Thank you again. I have to leave. And I think that Mr. Tsoutsouplidis, this is not the first, just the first This is the start for several other events, even in Greece or in Spain or in Ireland, in Italy, or in the 28 countries of the European Union. Congratulations for the organization. Thank you very much, Mr. Tsoutsoplides. Thank you.
There is other question? No?
Καλησπέρα. Ονομάζομαι Σιατραβάνη Αναστασία και θα κάνω στα ελληνικά την ερώτηση. Στον αγαπητό εξαίρετο μιλητή από την Πορτογαλία. Μας μιλήσατε για το πρόβλημα της Ελλάδας ως πρόβλημα χρέους ή των χωρών των Νότου ως πρόβλημα χρέους και μας είπατε ότι το πρόβλημα το έχει η χώρα. Το πρόβλημα το έχει η χώρα και κανένας δεν αρνιέται αυτό το πράγμα. Νομίζω όμως ότι όταν η χώρα εξαπατήθηκε παίρνοντας δάνεια, γιατί ξέρετε, η σχέση δανειστή-δανειζόμενου είναι διπλή, είναι διτή. Την ίδια ευθύνη που έχουμε ως δανειζόμενοι έχουν και οι δανειστές μας. Αναλαμβάνουμε και οι δύο ένα ρίσκο σε αυτή τη σχέση. Τον προηγούμενο μήνα η αμερικάνικη κυβέρνηση, το δικαστήριο δηλαδή, επέβαλε πρόστιμο μεγάλο στην Goldman Sachs νομίζω, για το ότι εξαπάτησε το κοινό της. Εμείς λοιπόν ως λαός είμαστε εξαπατημένος. Θεωρούσαμε ότι είμαστε ικανοί να είμαστε σε αυτή τη μεγάλη ομάδα που λέγεται Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Μας έδωσαν τα δάνεια, τα πήραμε, γιατί θεωρούσαμε ότι μπορούσαμε να τα πάρουμε. Το πρόβλημα λοιπόν το έχουμε εμείς. Τη λύση του. Η λύση του παραδεχτήκατε ότι δεν είναι σωστή. Αυτή η λύση ήταν κακή και έχουμε χιλιάδες νεκρούς. Είναι πόλεμος και το ξέρετε. Όταν μιλάμε λοιπόν για αλληλεγγύη, να έρθω στον προηγούμενο συνομιλητή, εννοούμε ακριβώς όχι χρήματα. Προσπαθούμε και διεκδικούμε λιγότερη κερδοσκοπία από εμάς. Και εμείς θα σας ξεπληρώσουμε. Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστώ. This is a problem of institutions, because when I was saying the country is responsible, I was not saying you are responsible. I would not say I am responsible. We are all responsible, but there are people is more responsible than the others. When I buy a fridge to my house in Portugal, is because I think I can have a fridge. But because I am not having the whole information, I only know what is my salary, I know what are my expenses at home, so I can make my budget. When you're dealing with a country, usually the consumer, the citizen, reacts to the conditions that he sees in the country. Watches television, reads the newspapers, say, well, the economy is okay, so... Mary, let's buy a fridge, or let's buy a car. So who is being deceived? We have been deceived several times in different levels, because probably Goldman Sachs has been deceiving someone, probably they have been deceived by someone, because there is lots of speculations. So here comes institutions, because in every country there's a central bank, there are auditors' court, there are analysts, well paid. They can read an Excel page in 5 seconds. So they should see how is the situation of the country. And they should speak the truth to the people, saying, we are not in a good situation. So keep your expenses lower, or we have to have some austerity measures. But what we have seen, for instance, in Portugal in the past, and we have seen, I think, in Greece, but I don't want to make any comments to be very unpolite to make comments on Greece, but I can speak about my own country. We have been making too much expenses without having the money to pay for it. Of course, we can have a high-speed train in Portugal. That's a country that 3 times Belgium, so we need really high-speed train. We can save 15 minutes from north to south. Everybody likes a high-speed train. Everybody likes good motorways. But if we don't have money for that, we can not afford it. For instance, we have 3 motorways between Lisbon and Oporto. We can choose the motorway. It's a luxury. And so it comes to the institutions, replying to your question, because the institutions that are paid for by us, taxpayers, to make the analysis of the situation, they can say, look, we are going in deep trouble. So it could tell the government, don't do this, don't do that, don't spend. And the government would say to the people, we are in a difficult situation, let's try to put this together, while it is a small problem. Because if in Portugal we had some restructuring measures some 10 years ago, if in Greece there were some structuring measures 10 years ago, probably the remedy would be much softer, and we'd not be having this problem here or in Portugal or in Ireland. So someone has been deceiving, yes. Is it on purpose? Could be. Is less quality of politics? Yes, could be. Is it electoral reasons? A government could say, well, we have having elections in 1 year time, so let's inaugurate this motorway because that's good on television. So, and nobody asks who is going to pay for it. Because, oh, it's very good. I can go in 10 minutes from my house to the nearest town. Nobody makes questions, because they say if the government does that, it's because they know how to pay for it. So you are very right, because the consumer, the citizen, it reacts to the conditions of the country. But each person does not have the big picture of the country. Probably you don't know, probably you know now, because so many things have been said about the situation in Greece. Now I know the situation in Portugal, but some 5 years ago, probably I did not know how was the real situation of the economy in my own country. So I could buy the Ferrari, and 1 year later I'll go to the bank, sorry mate, but I cannot pay for it. So you are very right. Sometimes you are led to make some expenses at family level, at country level, because you don't have the big picture. Institutions to control it. That's a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Kostas.
There's another question there.
It's finished.
There's another question there, I think. Now it's your work. Now it's up to you.
Me alone.
And I was the last one. I was right. Thank you very much. Can I go?
Yes. I think that it's better that you do the conclusion. No? Forse è meglio che le fa Kostas le conclusioni. Adesso gli dico del cardinale Lambertini. Così. Adesso li facciamo. Only a little word for the conclusion, because I think that the problem of the European Union is that we speak much. We spend all time to speak much word. So I know that Greece is not a Roman Catholic religion, but for my conclusion I want to remember the word of a famous bishop of the Catholic Church, of the Roman Catholic Church in the 19th centuries of a big changement, because was born the first socialist movement, the first union to protect the labor, the first Labour Party. This Bishop of Bologna, is more eyes to this new movement, but also is a very representative of Roman Curia. But when she came to Rome to discussing the problem about the Catholic Church and the new Italian states and the new problem that appears on the horizon of the society, and their colleague, the other bishop, the cardinal, spend more time to speak word. He beginning their speech with always this little word, please, my dear colleague, more less word, but more growth and more up, tagliatelle and lasagne. That is the Italian translation of Greek moussaka. The name of the bishop is Cardinale Lambertini. So I think that at the end of this very interesting debate in the other session and the other panel, but Fernando as a decano of a correspondent in Brussels, I round about Brussels, Strasbourg and the European Union in about more or less 20 years. And every time I hear much and much speech, much and much word. I think that now in Europe probably is necessary more or less word and more up and more growth, tagliatelle and lasagne and moussaka for our country. Thank you very much.
So perhaps we can go the other way around since we started with Dario, Aristotelia.
It's kind of difficult to wrap this up because, we almost said everything at our panel too, which started as how EU policies can fuel growth. But as you must have seen, it turned to be like a debate for the bailout programs and how solidarity should be shown, and if the interest rates should be decreased. I found the idea of a fund that will boost structural reforms positive. But if there is not political will, I don't think a fund by itself can actually help. And also I think we need to tackle the issue of what my colleague from Italy said about the generational gap, that people who are young now will have to pay for all this pain later. So we have to do something about the young generation. I think the President of the European Parliament also stressed it. There is a danger of having a lost generation, and I think that is where we should start from. Apart from that, I think a conversation on growth right now in the South is by itself an optimistic conversation, because 2 years ago or 1 year ago we would talk about the bailout programs and economic indicators and so on. So it's positive that this discussion has begun. I think we're far from making this reality, but at least we're talking about it. And we have Euro elections the next year. So I'm optimistic that something will change. And actually I had prepared something for my Portuguese colleague who would be here. And let's not whine all the time. And I remembered one of the quotes Fernando Pessoa made in his book of Disquiet, which was like, I was not ready for this, but life, I had other expectations, but life put me here. So let's stop whining. Let's start seeing what we can change in our countries, and I'm sure then we can export it, and we'll find a kind of compromise with the North. And I think we have to do something about it soon so that we don't see it in the Euro election polls, because everybody is worried, and we don't want to see more Bebe Grillos or Golden Dawn or anything of that kind.
Thank you very much. Elias?
We touched on the subject how to overcome crisis and how to relaunch growth during the first panel. I will start trying to find the common themes which all the participants agreed. I think that by the vast majority of them, if not all, they referred to trust as a very important issue in order to go further from here. It's not just financial decisions. There cannot be just financial decisions at the point that we are right now. And I think that all the participants, especially the MEPs, realize that there is very limited time until the European elections for the issues to be laid out according to the party lines and according to the party philosophies for the voters to vote. This is a crucial thing, and I think that this is also a personal worry, because we haven't seen it happening on a national or supranational level, to have a clear election with clear agendas, who is going to do what, so the next day of the election we are saved by all this bickering, coming and going, and lack of strategy, basically. Mrs. Carvalho, the Portuguese MEP, said that something interesting, that the root of the issue of the crisis, and is something that we don't discuss often, is in technology. The fact that we have exported a lot of jobs from European Union, and I don't know whether we can bring them back or reinstate them. And then she presented to us how the Portuguese program is going. Her suggestion was along the lines of more European Union funds or better use of European Union funds. Mr. Skylakakis from the Liberals said that Europe has lost two competitive advantages and kept only one. The competitive advantages lost were the monopoly of capitalism and monopoly of highest education. The one that stayed is the monopoly on institutions, which is an important asset in this period. He suggested that we should move faster to smaller states in European Union, use money intelligently, and that the politicians need to convince, and especially the politicians of the South, need to convince about the effectiveness of their programs in order to ask for more assistance. Mr. Hadjigeorgiou from Cyprus and for the European left, he suggested that we should scrap austerity as a European policy, and the new money would come from tackling tax evasion, and he asked for the reducing rates for loans and the increase of loans in the European Union. He suggested that in order for this to be heard, this demand to be heard in Europe, there should be a bigger rally to the ECB or whatever from European unemployed people in order to promote that. Then we had two reporters, one from Italy and one from Greece. Mrs. Valeria De Rosa from Italy, she argued that there is no growth, there is no South for growth, touching a little bit to the lack of closeness, especially at the beginning of the crisis. And she pointed out that there are too many institutions, too many circles of power within the European Union. So we need to have this somehow streamlined with one president, one voice in these issues. And finally, Mr. Stangos from Kathimerini, he attributed the problems of Greece to a vicious circle of low productivity and austerity, which makes the problem of recession even worse. And it produces, as he said, an increase in Euroscepticism and a different mood against the European Union. And he said that the solution to that would be more unity and more common European attitude towards these problems. I think that all of them realized that, all of them said to the audience that there are a lot of painful truths to be told, and from the European institutions, from the members of Parliament, and they all agreed, and I think that we all agree to that in order to have some kind of change in the political outlook and a different stance for these problems, this can only go through the elected institutions of the European Union, such as the Europarlament. But there is a lot to be done in that aspect as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being, for demonstrating this bravery and stamina to stay after 7 hours here. I didn't think in the beginning that we would have conclusive answers and go out to tell the world. Well, that's verified. But yet, I think we gained in self-confidence. I think we start talking to each other. Even that is necessary at this stage. We are really at the initial stage. Secondly, I think for the first time we see that we can say hard truths. And that's important also. To be aware is the first step to correct things. A lot of things have been codified. The only thing we can say is that we need to keep working on that. Certainly we do not have the final word. I don't know if it will be words or the inspiration of today's meeting will be sufficient for politicians like President Schulz to carry it back and propose solutions. Well, thank you so much for the contribution that you did to all that. Thank you all for staying with us until this time. Thank you for my colleagues that put all this effort to bring this thing, to make it happen. And until the next time.